My name is Rana Flowers. I'm the UNICEF representative here in Vietnam. In UN speak, that means I'm the head of office.
So my first question is, why does UNICEF exist globally and what does it do in Vietnam?
Well, UNICEF was established right at the end of the Second World War. When you spell out UNICEF, it stands for the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund. So it was really established as an emergency organisation to respond, to identify and respond to the children who were left destitute after the Second World War. So that meant the children who were starving, the children for whom they had no schools in their communities anymore, the children whose parents had disappeared or died. All of that became UNICEF's mandate to be able to reach out and support, address the rights of every child in every country. And here in Vietnam, UNICEF was active from the early 60s. And then we were asked to come back, and we were the first asked to come back after reunification. And again, that was about us helping re-establish systems, making sure the health system functions for children, making sure the education system is in place, making sure that we have teachers and nurses to fulfill those institutions. And since then, and that's 45 years now, we've been working hand in hand with the people of Vietnam, also with the government here, to look at the rights of children and to progressively improve their rights and their well-being.
Why are you passionate about your work?
Seriously, I have the best job in the world. Working for children's rights, seeing the difference that we can make, being able to identify a problem and be creative and find a solution for that problem, being able to focus on the dignity of children. UNICEF's mandate is underpinned by the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the International Human Rights Treaty, most ratified in the world. And in that Human Rights Treaty, all of the rights to education, to health, to nutrition, to a standard of living, to information, to be able to participate, etc., all captured in the Convention. And the word dignity appears 7 times. So for me, even when I'm having a hard time getting a solution to work, the word dignity comes to me. Because I think if we focus on the dignity of every child, if we really genuinely care about ensuring no child is ever left behind, we can change the world.
What are some of your highlight projects and what is keeping you busy currently?
2020 has been a fascinating year and completely exhausting. So whenever there is an emergency, UNICEF, which is both a development and a humanitarian organisation, we're a bit unusual in that way. As soon as there's an emergency, we must move from our development frame to responding to the emergency. So even before Tet this year, colleagues were pulled back from holidays and we started to mobilise. And with a pandemic like COVID-19, that means we started first looking at what's all the messaging. How do we get information to children, to families that helps protect them? Then how do we support the education system? We wanted kids to stay in school if possible, so how do we get the right safety and protections for children that they can return to school? Of course, the health, being able to mobilise and ensure people are safe. And during any kind of emergency, what we do see is that people's health-seeking behaviour drops. So being able to reach out to communities, keep children vaccinated, make sure pregnant women are still getting care. All of that has kept us very, very busy during the COVID period. You add a layer to that, which is what we call well-being or mental health. And obviously with COVID, we saw domestic violence increase. We know violence against children increased, stresses increased for families. And that meant we also started trying to reach out with kindness messages, with asking young people to do activities that really expressed a kindness and supported another child. And we're hoping that gets paid forward and that every child can benefit from that as well. Blink and you're in a flooding emergency. So we're currently, and what's keeping us up at night at the moment are the floods in the central region. We've had teams down doing rapid assessments. We are working in all of the sectors that UNICEF is active. We are getting safe water to communities. We're looking at the sanitation. So in a lot of the facilities, kids and families and the elderly, they don't have a toilet. Now what happens when you don't have a toilet? You get disease outbreaks. So from the earliest days, we started to see diarrhoea. That's always a bad signal. It means the health facilities, wherever the people are staying, are also affected. We need to act quickly to address that. We've got schools that have been terribly damaged. All the books have been lost. You've got families where their homes have been swept away. The kids have lost everything that they owned. Being able to act quickly to address first the life-saving interventions and then really quickly respond to these other elements. Education for us is always an important intervention. Number one, because it really effectively reintroduces normalcy for children. If we can get them back into school, then they're back into a system, they're back into their normal routine. That helps them deal with the trauma. And when you think about flooding for children, or for any of the families in fact, the majority of people can't swim. So to have a flood rush through your home and sweep everything, it's terrifying. So we have a lot of children who are suffering from trauma, post-traumatic stress, and that's another part of the response that we have to make very quickly. Already with COVID, families couldn't put food on the table. So we needed to now get good nutrition to those families. A lot of the food that's given is instant noodles. I can assure you it has zero nutritional value. So we have a little powder which comes in the same size as your ketchup from McDonald's, little tube. Much better for you. And it just gets sprinkled on children's food, and that gives them the nutrients that they need for the day. So these are the quick solutions that we immediately get out to the families.
Which SDGs do you think your work impacts the most, and how?
For UNICEF, we focus on 13 of the 17 SDGs, and it's probably really 14 if I count the water. We don't actively work on water, but we certainly, through the climate change work that we do, we're certainly looking at single-use plastics and green energy. I think for UNICEF, the first 6 are probably absolutely crucial, but then I'll get into trouble for leaving out the others further down the path. I think 10 is about inequalities, and for me that underpins all our work. If we can ensure the same quality education and healthcare for every child, if we can make sure every child has that hope and the same opportunities to flourish, to become the Prime Minister, to become whoever they want to be, then that's an extremely important SDG for me, because that challenges us to reach into the most disadvantaged, the most excluded, the furthest away, the hardest to reach communities, to make sure that we are ensuring that they have the same quality as the children in UNICEF have, and that they have the same opportunities to move into employment, to be able to flourish and help their communities move out of poverty. But if you look at, SDG 1 talks about no poverty. For us, poverty, when it's captured as an economic measure, is meaningless. Poverty for children equals not being able to get to school. It equals not having 3 meals a day and not having good, nutritious meals on the table. It means they may go to school for a little while, but they usually drop out. It means they don't access healthcare because their parents can't afford the out-of-pocket expenses. And it often means that girls are disadvantaged. And so that's your first 6 of the SDGs there. I think the peace and justice is also extremely important. We do a lot of work to support strong institutions through our work. We believe very strongly that what we do must be sustainable, must introduce change, and it's got to be sustainable. You don't introduce change by working on one child. You introduce change by working on the system. And that means, and that's the power of the UN as opposed to perhaps NGOs, is that one of my feet is in that community, admiring the resilience of the people, looking at the dignity of every child and working out what we can do to support them better. My other foot is in the minister's office. And there we're creating change and policy and legislation with them that doesn't just reach that one child, but reaches every child and changes the lives of every child.
What do you find challenging about your work?
Challenges can be good. So for me, I actually like problems because it means I have to stop and think. I have to be creative. I have to draw on what I know from all of the countries that I've worked in. This is my 8th country for UNICEF. And I have to work out how to adapt that or how to do something completely different for Vietnam. And for me, that's a great challenge. I think it's really important to never go in with a one solution fits all. You have to be adaptable and you have to know how to work with your solution. So a great challenge. COVID, a negative challenge for so many. And I mean, here in Vietnam, we're very lucky, but in many countries their economy has collapsed, their health system has collapsed. It's very tragic and now a lot of security issues, etc. for the people. But COVID also brought a lot of good challenges. It moved the needle on some things we've been trying to change overnight. So things that the government was saying, oh, maybe, yes, we'll get to that. Suddenly with COVID, boom, we got there. One that I would point to would be, we've been working with the government to introduce digital literacy throughout the curriculum. So from preschool to year 12. There we've also been working to introduce what we call skills for employability. This is problem-solving skills, creativity, communication. Hard, I guess, for UNICEF kids to appreciate. Your education system is based on a model that teaches you that those skills from the earliest moments. But the schools in Vietnam are not based on that learning model. So we have to change the way teachers teach, and we have to change what is taught. And obviously a big part of that will be digital literacy and digital skills for future employment.
How can the UNICEF Hanoi community help your work?
I think in numerous ways. The first thing I would say to the UNICEF community is know what you're passionate about. Pick your SDG, pick your issue, really understand it well, and please use your voice. And I think the obvious one that comes to mind is climate change. When we speak to children in Vietnam, their biggest concern is for their environment and the impact of climate change on their country. And they're getting angry. So use your voice, raise that voice to make a difference, because we underestimate the power, including on social media, of people expressing a concern. Now, you want to do it in a careful way, not to criticize the government, but to be encouraging to the decision makers, to the companies, to the polluters, to really change their modus operandi in Vietnam. So really being clear and active for me is the first thing that I think young people can do. There's also numerous other ways that, for example, UNICEF students and teachers can work with UNICEF. We do, and we're the biggest for social media. It's not unusual for us now to post something that reaches 45 million people in Vietnam, but we need to have young people activated, and we need to have their comments, their opinions. We need to hear what young people think, and we need their help to help amplify messages. So when we post something on social media that might be providing some information to families, etc., amplify that, spread the word. We do challenges all the time on TikTok and others. We're doing a challenge at the moment for World Children's Day on the 20th of November, where we have a theme of cleaner, greener, safer Vietnam. And we've asked young people to make a video about what that means to them in their communities. If every student in UNICEF made a video, it would be fabulous. And we'd be able to feature that in our video that goes to New York. I think young people have a different way of seeing things. They're often certainly more creative than I am. We have a lot of data on the situation of children. I can spiel off statistics in terms of what's happening to children all over Vietnam, but the best way to capture that is in infographics. So if young people can help us design really cool infographics, animations, or even make videos about children's rights, or about the situation, or even just helping us understand the voice and listen to children and young people, all of that is an enormous benefit to our work.